forced cases involving narcotics, sex offenders, human trafficking, and the exploitation of children. Over the years, she completed hundreds of investigations in those areas of expertise. As an advanced crisis negotiator, she specialized in de-escalation, communication, and victim-centered support during critical incidents. She is a past president and lifetime member of the Association of Oklahoma Narcotic Enforcers and a member of the Fraternal Order of Police and the American Legion. Today, Nancy integrates her extensive law enforcement background with her work as an interfaith minister. She presents workshops and lectures nationwide on trauma, suicide, crisis response, spiritual care, and the human impact of law enforcement work. Nancy is a certified yoga instructor, runner, photographer, poet, and crystal sound bowl intuitive. She also volunteers as a trained listener for Copline, an international crisis hotline dedicated to supporting law enforcement officers and their families. Nancy has been honored to serve as president of the Church of the Living Spirit for the past 7 years, fully embodying her motto, protecting and serving your well-being. Please join me in welcoming Nancy to the
Thank you all so very, very much. Hello, Zoomers. Hello, my church family. That was beautiful, Joe. Just beautiful. And it was beautiful to hear everybody sing. Lovely, lovely. So, it was a Wednesday, and I was in mandatory training with my partners when our captain came into our classroom and turned on the news to let us know there had been a bombing in Oklahoma City. This was April 19th, 1995, at exactly 9:01 a.m. When I was making the schedule out this year for the speakers at church, and I saw that this day fell on Sunday, I immediately scheduled myself to speak, as I have always wanted to share with you my thoughts about this day, April 19th. Saying it out loud today, it still feels like just yesterday. Immediately after we heard the news, we all said we wanted to go to Oklahoma City to help instead of sitting in that classroom. But with so much unknown, what had caused this, what kind of attack it was it an isolated attack? We also had to be concerned for the safety of our own town. Being attached to a military base made us an even greater potential target. And as the details began to unfold, it was almost impossible to take in. It was decided our TAC team would respond and the rest of us would remain at our post on high alert. Numerous officers I knew through the Association of Oklahoma Narcotic Enforcers also assisted with the rescue and recovery efforts, and there was support, of course, from first responders all across the country. We would eventually learn the blast killed 168 people, including 19 children, and injured over 800. The explosion damaged more than 300 buildings across a 48 square block area. The Methodist church directly east of the Alpha Pi Morris building had a stained glass blown out and several walls collapsed. Yet remarkably, a row of Easter lilies on the balcony ledge remained standing and untouched amidst all the rubble. Also, there was a 100-year-old American elm tree that survived the blast, being in the center of the destruction. This tree would become a symbol of resilience, as the Easter lilies symbolized hope, not only for a community, but for a state and a nation. Timothy McVeigh was taken into custody just 90 minutes after the bombing during a routine traffic stop for no license plate by retired Lieutenant Charlie Hanger. We would learn that this was a domestic terrorist attack that remains the deadliest in our nation's history. The ripple from this horrific act stayed with so many of us. We lost children, family, friends, partners. What stayed with me the most was the magnitude of it, how many lives were touched and why. and how deeply everyone was affected. It was a lot to comprehend. How something like this could even happen, and how anyone could carry out something so unthinkable. And there has not been a year that goes by that I do not think about what happened this day, April 19th. Hence the slogan, "We will never forget." And you'll see this picture all over Facebook and social media. And then the second picture is the picture that my Narcotics Association, that was the cover of our magazine, as we lost one of our agents in the bombing. Thanks, Nick. The stunning Oklahoma City Memorial is designed as a journey through time and emotion, and every element representing a specific part of the tragedy and the recovery, dedicated on April 19th, 2000. It now stands on the site of the former building. And if you have never had the opportunity to visit the memorial, it has several key features and symbolisms. There are the gates of time, the twin monumental gates with the east gate reading 901 representing the last minute of innocence, and the west gate reading 903 representing the minute healing begins. There are 168 bronze chairs arranged in 9 rows representing where each victim was in the building, and 19 smaller chairs for each child. There is a shallow reflecting pool for quiet contemplation reflecting the sky, a survivor tree with a rescuer's orchid representing resilience and the thousands who helped, and a survivor's wall listing the names of over 600 people who survived the blast. This memorial serves to promote a better understanding of the impact of violence. And if you'll show them in case you haven't seen it. That's the beautiful memorial, and the survivor of the pool is just beautiful, and the chairs are on the right-hand side. And then on the left, you can see where people can sit and you can contemplate. And then the tree that survived, you see that it's amazing. And then the second picture, at nighttime, all the chairs illuminate, and it's just absolutely stunning. Thanks, Nick. So the Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon began in 2001 as a fundraiser for the memorial and museum, which is completely self-funded. But it became so much more than just a race. It became a way to celebrate. The Oklahoma community, survivors, family, and friends came together, volunteering, supporting, and creating an atmosphere filled with strength, spirit, hope, and life. The mission statement of this race is to celebrate life, reach for the future, honor the memories of those who were killed, and unite the world in hope. This is not just another marathon. It is a run to remember and a race to show that we can each make a difference and change the world. The inaugural marathon race in 2001 had about 5,000 runners. Between the tragedy of the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995, my mother dying suddenly and unexpectedly in 1997, followed by my father passing just a year and a half later, I suffered a severe emotional toll, and I was searching for answers. For some reason, I felt compelled not to volunteer, but to participate and train to run the full marathon, having never run more than 5 miles in my entire life. A feat that only less than 1% of Americans will ever accomplish in their lifetime. But I wanted to run to remember, not only for the victims of the Oklahoma City bombing, but also for my personal loss. So I found a 16-week running training schedule online. I joined a group that ran long distances on Saturday, and while working the midnight shift and trying to sleep during the day, my training began, and I stuck to it like glue. If you've never trained for a marathon, it's quite the process. You run short runs during the week, and and run one long run on weekends, starting at 10 miles, and you build up to 18 to 20 miles long runs by the end of your 16-week training schedule. You actually never run the whole 26.2 miles in training. You put the work in, you trust the process that you have done enough, and on race day, you trust that you have worked hard enough to finish the race. So the second year of the Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon had about 6,000 runners, and I was one of them. Race day is hard to describe. The nerves, the anxiousness, excitement, and uncertainty all mixed together. Gear check starts at about 5 a.m., so there's not much sleep the night before, and the race begins at 6 a.m. at the memorial site itself with a welcome, introduction, and a prayer. However, many of the runners gather far earlier than that and sit at the memorial site in quiet contemplation before the race start. So this is a picture I took myself the morning of the race, sitting in quiet contemplation. The first one. Well, that's the race start. That's okay. That's all right. That's the race start, and then the other. Yeah, that's it. And then that's the morning. You could see how dark it was, and you could see the runners kind of walking around. But everybody gathers around there and walks around and just really contemplates and thinks about why we're there. So it's a really beautiful gathering. Thank you, Nick. And one of the most powerful traditions I've ever experienced, just before the race, everyone observes 168 seconds of silence to honor each life lost. That big crowd you saw, complete silence. Thousands of people. You could hear a pin drop and birds singing. I remember getting goosebumps, feeling the weight of every single life. It wasn't just quiet, it was presence. And in that moment, I felt so proud to be a part of this, the run to remember, to honor the fallen, and to honor my own. So the race began and I felt strong. By mile 3, the jacket came off and I was ready to get serious and start knocking down miles. The course winds through many Oklahoma City neighborhoods filled with people cheering you on, and the streets are lined with enthusiastic people showing incredible support. And along the route, you have the opportunity to pass 168 banners, each bearing the name of a victim. It is emotional and it is extremely powerful. That particular year, the wind was exceptionally strong in Oklahoma City, because that's what Oklahoma is known for, right? The wind sweeping down the plains. Woohoo, but man, is it rough to run against, I tell you. But that year, I was running my race determined to persevere until about mile 20, in what runners call hitting the wall. That's when everything changed. Every step felt heavier than the last. I remember thinking, how am I ever going to run 6 more miles? I recently watched the Netflix documentary professional distance cyclist Mariah Wilson, who was tragically murdered in 2023 at the young age of 25. Mariah so poignantly described hitting the wall as a profound, dark experience of emptying her energy reserve and going to that deep, dark place of complete emptiness, where the beautiful paradox is that emptying yourself can be a fulfilling experience. I thought that was profound. And in that bottomed out moment of my emptiness, for me, something shifted in what I can only describe as a deep, meditative and trance state. I could see people cheering, but I couldn't hear them. I was watching every single thing around me, yet everything seemed to be going in slow motion, even though I was still running. The moment and the only thing I kept hearing over and over and over again in my mind was this song that I was singing to my dad. Papa, can you hear me? From the musical Yentl, sung by Barbra Streisand in 1983 and released on Columbia Records label. Papa, can you hear me? Papa, can you see me? Papa, can you find me in the night? Papa, are you near me? Papa, can you hear me? Papa, can you help me not be frightened? Over and over and over again, I was singing this phrase in my head. At that time, I would never consider this a sort of mantra or a prayer or mediumship. But in looking back, that's exactly what it was. It was like I had an out-of-body experience. I called for my dad to help carry me through those last 6 miles, and he did. Even though I was surrounded by thousands of people yelling and cheering at the finish line, as I crossed that line, and in that exact moment, I knew I had not done it alone. I never had. In the end, it was me and my dad. That day, I finished the marathon in 4 hours, 12 minutes, and 18 seconds, which equates to a 9-minute and 40-second pace. The crazy thing is, I never slowed down. I was not running in slow motion those last 6 miles in all actuality. I kept the pace. I was ranked 29th out of 97 in my age group and 130th out of the 506 female runners that day. It was a pretty impressive time for a first-time marathoner, and it was a very proud moment for me. Woohoo. There I am. Painful, but there I am. That day, I also discovered something in myself, even if it was for a little later in my life, that I had a natural talent for distant running. Running became the way I was able to cope with everything I had to deal with throughout my career and personal life. And running did I do. And I still do, 24 years later. I went on to run the Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon and Half Marathon 15 more times, each one with great honor and gratitude. Next Sunday, April 26th, the Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon will host its 26th year with over 26,000 runners. It is now considered one of the most meaningful and well-supported races in the United States and has been named one of the 12 must-run marathons in the world by Runner's World magazine. And it remains my most meaningful and favorite race to run. And to think this all began from tragedy. There have certainly been more horrific events before and many since, including 9/11. But I truly believe this moment, this tragedy, and the people of the great state of Oklahoma showed our country what resilience really looks like and helped prepare us for the tragedies that would follow. They showed the world what it means to come together, to carry one another, and to keep moving forward, even when the weight feels too heavy to bear. Because I felt that weight, and I also felt what it meant to be carried through it. And that's what I witnessed in Oklahoma. People carrying each other through the unthinkable. Because even in our darkest moments, there is still strength. There is still connection. And there is always hope. And every one of us in our own way will face moments like this sometime in our life. We must always remember that through despair comes strength. And through strength comes a resilience we didn't even know we had. And that, my friends, that is a lesson in all of this. We are never meant to carry it alone. I would now respectfully like to ask you to please join me this morning in the long-standing tradition in Oklahoma to observe 168 seconds of silence to honor the lives of those we lost. I thank you so very much for your kind attention, and I love you all.
We could just take a deep